We hiked all 50 states in just 24 months, and we've got the logistics and all the details about how you can do it too. Stay tuned. Hi there, we're Chris and Steve from Eat, Walk, Learn. We're an early retired couple who left our corporate America jobs in May of 2021. We sold everything, including our home in Denver, Colorado, and all the things in it, plus our cars, just so that we could travel the world full time. Everything that was left we put into our 2 carry-on suitcases so we can travel lightly around the world. Would you please take a moment to subscribe and like? We share our tips from our Nomad life, take repositioned cruises to get from continent to continent, and we enjoy gorgeous hikes in beautiful places around the world. We also try to eat vegan as often as we can. We hope you'll enjoy reading one of our latest books, including 50 Hikes in 50 States, or our bestseller, 2 Carry-Ons and a Plan. You can pick them up on Amazon next time you're there. Please follow us on social so you can join us every Sunday at 5 p.m. Eastern. Thank you so much for sharing our adventure with us. Where are we?
We are still in sunny, hot Florida and going to be leaving soon, going to Maine. But while we're here, we thought it would be a great opportunity to tell you about the 50 Hikes in 50 States project. Now, just to be clear, we didn't do this all in one trip. We did it over weekends and holidays.
While we were still working.
Yeah, while we were still working over a 2-year period. And we got to see all 50 states and do hikes in all 50 states. And this video is not really about the hikes themselves, although we'll give you a couple examples. But it's more about how we planned it. How did we do the logistics? How did we make it all work? And tell about the communication and kind of how this was a dry run for us.
Right, but first let's do some housekeeping.
Okay.
So we want you to subscribe. Thank you very much. And also, we have a newsletter that we would really love for you to join. And we'll tell you at the end of the video why you should join that, because you might get something out of it besides just great newsletters from us. We also have this YouTube channel, and we have a brand new Facebook group we've rebranded EatWalkLearn Nomad Life. So if you want to come join us over on the Facebook group, we'd love to have you there too. All right, moving on from the commercial. Let's tell you about, so this project actually, so I had a dad that very much felt that if you are going to go travel the world, you should see the USA first. So if you've read any of my books, you know this backstory of we had these, long distance road trips with Dad and Mom in the car, going back and forth across the states. So I've seen all 50 states. What's your cup say this time?
My cup says,
every day a fresh start.
Fresh start.
All right, that's nice. That's nice, yeah. Anyway, so, we did all these road trips, but even though I had seen 50 states by the time I was 30, I felt like I hadn't actually seen them. So as Steve and I were preparing for our Nomad life and knew that we were going to be leaving the U.S., maybe for good or maybe for long term, we felt it was our responsibility as American citizens of the good old USA to see our country before we left it.
Yeah.
But we were still working, and we had to figure out how to do this. So what was the first thing we did?
What was the first thing? Well, the first thing that we did, that you did, is you made a list of all 50 states. Mm-hmm. And kind of group them by seasonality, right? You don't want to go to Florida in August. You don't want to go to Minnesota in January.
Right. So we decided which season was the best season to hike that particular state. So that's the first thing we did. Then the second thing we did is we grouped the states geographically. So we put Alabama, Mississippi, and Georgia together, or Florida together. We kind of grouped them together. And then, since we knew we were going to be doing this on the weekends, we grouped them by regional airport. So one of the big secrets to how we were able to fly to all these places. Now, the good news is you don't have to fly in order to do this project. I'm going to put a map here of how you can drive to do it too. So the map I'm showing you is if you drove to go see all these hikes, this is how you would drive it. We flew, and we made a deal, we got a deal. We exercised our rights with Southwest Airlines and managed to get companion passes. How do you do that, honey?
Well, we do it a couple of different ways. At the time, I was working and I was flying a lot and taking Southwest a lot. So I was accumulating a gazillion points and had, the A+ status and the whole thing. But the big secret is to be able to get a combination of the personal Chase credit card for Southwest and the business Chase credit card. Getting 2 combined credit cards gives you enough points in order to qualify for a companion pass. And the companion pass means one person pays for their flight, and they can pay for it with dollars or with points, and the second person gets to go for free as their companion. How sweet is that?
Right. So you can Google Southwest Companion Pass. A lot of people write about this that are experts in hacking and travel hacking. We don't think we're travel hacking experts, but we are an expert in getting a Southwest Companion Pass. So anyway, we had the Southwest Companion Pass. So we knew that we could do all these hikes pretty much together and do every single one of them except Alaska via Southwest Airlines. So we really, we were all in with using Southwest in order to get us to go to these different locations.
Yeah, even Hawaii.
Yeah,
which is a state that I had never been to. So I was excited to go to all 50 states. I hadn't been to all 50 states.
And a lot of times we were using Steve's points or my points or whatever in order to go. So, we'll talk about the full cost at the end of the video as well. So, we grouped the states geographically, then we grouped them by airport, and then we started plugging in dates, idealized dates for when we could actually fly. What we started realizing is that, interestingly, if you ever look at a map of where the airports in the United States are located, they're often located on the borders or the intersections of where states are, because it seems like the cities, the populations seem to be around those borders. So if you look like
Cincinnati
is right. You get Ohio, Kentucky, and
West
Virginia, all geographically.
Yeah.
So we started looking at the airports and realized that we could do this project and do maybe 2 or 3 hikes each time we went, and really knock out 3 states every time we traveled. So, and then we looked at, probably every 2 months or so, there's a 3-day weekend. And it made sense for us to group those states that were further, because we were in Denver, our furthest flights were either to Boston or Florida, were probably our furthest flights because they're 3 to 4 hours from Denver. We would put those on the longer weekends so that we could really take advantage of that extra day off on Monday or Friday or whatever that Steve would have in order to not kill ourselves for the weekend.
Yeah, but tell us what happened about halfway through this particular project. I think we had been to about 20 states.
Right.
And then what?
Right. So we started this project in May of 2019. We were exactly halfway through the project, and we all know what happened. May 2020 or March 2020, COVID hit. So we're like, what do we do with this project? We still figured out how to do a regular weekend trip each month by paying attention to the stay-at-home rules. I want to stress that we didn't break any laws. We didn't go any place we weren't supposed to be going at the time of COVID. But we turned our trip into road trips then. And fortunately, it was in the spring and early summer that we generally weren't allowed to travel much at that time, according to the stay-at-home rules, or you weren't allowed to fly, or all the things that were happening. And fortunately, that was when we were in Denver and we could drive to all these locations, and it was the right weather for that. So we did Montana and Wyoming, Nebraska, Arizona, Colorado, while during COVID, and we were able to drive to those locations. So fortunately, by the time May 2021 came around, where were we? Memorial Day weekend on our last hike.
Yeah, our last hike was in Alaska, right? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Alaska was our last hike of our 50 states, and it was also the launch of our nomadic lifestyle. We came back from our trip to Alaska, and our house was empty, and it was in escrow. It was pending the final closing.
Right.
And that was a fun way to start our nomadic life and finish our 50 hike project with our trip to Alaska.
So the whole idea for this trip actually came about because I had read an outside living or outside hiking magazine or something that had listed the best hike in each state. I was like, oh, that'd be really cool. But when I was reading that article, there wasn't really any criteria for the hikes, except it has to be a pretty hike or a good hike or something. And what I realized was we're not people that are going to go do a 25-mile hike in a weekend. We, at the time anyway, we were working, we had to really create some criteria for the hikes. So we had 3 criteria. One was the hike had to be within the 2 hours of a Southwest airport, because if we were flying everywhere, we didn't want to also be driving all weekend long in order to get to the hikes. And driving around the 3 states, we had a lot of driving to do every weekend when we went out. So the second item was we were looking for 3 to 5 mile loop hikes. We didn't have to be a loop. That just made it easier if it were a loop because we had less logistics to figure out. But we were looking for a loop. And that it was an easy to moderate hike. Right. Steve and I mean, look at these guns, right? We don't have guns.
Well, the idea is, we want to be able to share these hikes with other people. And we want it to be, a broad audience of people that could say, yeah, I'd like to do some of these hikes. We didn't want to do hikes that were like in Colorado up to 14ers, and not very many people really could do a hike like that.
Right. And we didn't want it to have to require special equipment like ice cleats, or a lot of people use poles. We wanted to generally do hikes that didn't require poles. If just easy, moderate hikes that you could get out of the car, go for a hike, grab some lunch, get in the car, and go to the next location. And then, go ahead.
My favorite of the criteria was that it was quintessential hike, representing the state that we were in. And that we had to do some research on that, really to be able to kind of nail down and choose what was the best hike to do. So what gives
right? So quintessential meant that it was something that ideally we thought that if you were in a helicopter and you got dropped into this state and you were hiking, you would know it was that state because that's what the state was known for. That was kind of our litmus test for knowing if we were quintessentially in the right place.
Some of them weren't quite that evident. So my favorite example is in Illinois. Illinois is
the Prairie State.
The Prairie State. I wouldn't guess that Illinois was called the Prairie State.
Right. And so we ended up going to Medwin Natural Reserve, Medwin Tallgrass Nature Preserve, which is about an hour outside of Chicago. And actually, some of my Chicago friends were like, "Where did you go?" And it was near Joliet, Illinois. And it was a great history about prairies, the prairie grasses, the history of prairie grass, John Deere's impact on prairie grasses, and so on. So it's super interesting to find that out. We also went to Florida, and we were trying to figure out what would be quintessentially unique about Florida. And a lot of places have beaches. A lot of places have mangroves and swamps. We didn't think that those are really unique for Florida. I mean, Mississippi and Alabama have those as well. But Florida does have space. And so we went to Cape Canaveral National Seashore and hiked and tried to see the launching pads for where we launched some of our more popular rockets and things for the NASA space program. So in Arizona, we wanted to make sure that, everybody thinks of the Grand Canyon, but Arizona's got lots of ecosystems. It's got forests and deserts and Grand Canyons and red rocks and all kinds of things. So we went to the Water Wheel hike just outside of Scottsdale, which represented all those areas. So we really did, even though we tried to keep into the criteria of close to the airport and 2 to 3 or 3 to 5 miles, we also really focus on this quintessential. What were some of the reading materials we did in the car on the way to the hikes?
We would start with Wikipedia, and Wikipedia gives you all kinds of facts about the state and the history of the state. My favorite Wikipedia fact is, what is the state's beverage, right? What's the state beverage?
So if you know what without looking it up, if you know what your state beverage is, put it in the comments below. And you know what? We're going to give you a hint. You can guess, because 37 of the 50 states had the same state beverage.
Also really good marketing from this particular group.
From the dairy industry that had a very famous marketing plan called Got Milk. Apparently, they're also working to lobbying the legislatures as well. We found out that 37 state, I think it's 37, milk is their state beverage. So
you just gave it away.
I know, I gave it away. Darn it. Anyway, so what did we learn? What did we learn besides that stuff about the states? What else did we learn? We learned about.
You throw up these lobs, and I'm supposed to hit them out of the park, and
the logistics.
Yeah, right. So one of the things that we were planning was our, fully nomadic lifestyle. And in our fully nomadic lifestyle, we have to have great communication and really be great at planning and logistics. This was a super project in order to test our skills and test our relationship in that regard. Mm-hmm. And, we've done a lot of traveling, and we've done a lot of things together. But this was kind of like the dry run, if you will, of, can we really do this together? And it was
and it was also
obviously
neat because
successful.
most of the time Steve and I did the hikes together, but sometimes I went by myself and I had to do all those skills on my own. Sometimes I went with my daughter or our daughter. It was just she and I, and we did the hikes together. And Steve had to figure out, be okay with us going off by ourselves and doing our own things on our own. So, not that that was really ever an issue, but it's just it was a litmus test and a dry run for a lot of things that have happened in our Nomad life now that we got to practice in our 50 hikes, 50 states life. So I'm sure this was exercise in spreadsheets. We had a beautiful spreadsheet that we kept track of. We put all the hikes on there, the airports, where we flew in, the dates we did it, what order we did it in. I'm sure you're wondering where that spreadsheet is. So this, as you probably know, I wrote a book, 50 Hikes, 50 States, An American Adventure, and it's all of this plus some of my own personal growth as we hike these particular hikes. And it's from my point of view because I'm the one that wrote it, but we talk about all the logistics, how to do this trip, where to fly into, where the trails are, the addresses for the trails, the GPS locations for the trails, those details.
Where to get good food after the
trails.
Right.
Every place we went to eat, 99% of the time it was a vegan place or a place that had vegan food. So we've got 50 vegan restaurants listed. So if you want to get a copy of the book, it's on Amazon. I'll put the link in the description. If you subscribe to our newsletter, I will actually send you a special coupon in order to get the book. So make sure you get the newsletter, see the book. As you've seen, all the pictures I've been posting here, those are all pictures from our trip. And we would love for you to do the 50 Hikes, 50 States project because we want to hear about your experience and how you discovered whatever you discovered in the U.S. Tell us what was your favorite state? What was your favorite state?
My favorite was the Badlands of South Dakota.
Yeah. That was a good one.
Great hike.
We climbed that 100-foot ladder up to the top of the bluffs and then went out to the edge and there was those bison and the sunset and man, that was pretty.
It was great. Let's do it. Let's do it again.
Yeah.
Yeah. 50 more states.
So, and this book, actually, 50 Hikes, 50 States, is the prequel to our other book, 2 Carry-Ons and a Plan. A lot of you know about that, which is all about our nomad life, which a lot of people have been following that. Thank you guys very much for coming along. I hope you'll go do this project. It is an epic hike for an epic adventure. Have a great time doing it. See you next time. For an epic adventure, have a great time doing it. See you next time.